Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discover. What show is this? I don't even know where I am anymore. I think it's Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban. And if you're going down with the ship, make sure that you're downing some fine cask-aged Jameson whiskey. Jameson whiskey. Drink it slow. Joining me on the show as usual is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you back here. You were gone last week. Are you feeling good? Are you feeling better?
I am. Listen. I beat COVID. I beat COVID again.
Like Rocky.
They just can't stop me.
Or Creed. Sorry, Creed now. Sorry, you beat it like Creed.
It was actually pretty mild. I felt the worst, I think, last Thursday of the show and the Friday.
Yeah.
And then was pretty much okay. Just a little stir crazy.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that just seems to be the way that it's going to kind of be now, I guess. I go by the hot ones meter, which is to say that if they're wearing masks and the tables are separated on hot ones, we got a problem. If they're back together, it's not a problem. And I just watched the Pedro Pascal episode. No masks. Everybody's fine. So apparently COVID is done. But apparently you can still get it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it came out of nowhere. It was just like one of those things where I've like ongoing sinus problems.
Yeah.
And so I can never tell if I'm actually sick.
Yeah.
But then I got really like weird and like fevery, achy one night, and was like, I'm gonna take a COVID test just to be certain, and had it. So yeah, it was crazy. I fortunately or unfortunately ended up taking the test at my boyfriend's, and so we quarantined together. So I wasn't too bored. We were playing games and stuff, playing video games the whole way through. So
That's cool. That's good. Somebody says in the chat that they can't hear you. I can hear you, and I see levels and everything. So let us know if that doesn't get better, and we'll try to address it. You were not here last week, and so I need to get your opinion on two news stories that we talked about last week when Mikan Hana was on the show. And the first is specifically about the belt tightening going on at Paramount. Which might mean less Trek series going forward. And of course, the announcement of the last season of Discovery, Discovery's fifth and final season.
I'm okay with Discovery ending. You know, it's always better to end a show before it gets bad. I feel like American television, especially, and I think that we've talked about this before, like we tend to cling on to something.
Klingon,
like,
sure.
And you want those 14 seasons. You want the Supernatural. What, 16, 17, 18 seasons?
Yeah. And a couple attempted spinoffs and a prequel series now. And
that's a show that should have been cut at like 5 seasons. So I appreciate it. I also think that...
Yeah, when Dean went to hell. Right?
Don't drop the lore.
Oh, sorry.
On me.
Sorry.
I was there, Gandalf. I was there. So I think it's good. I think obviously I'll miss it. I also think that, and I've worried before on this show that they're doing too much, and that it'll be quantity over quality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it can only mean good things. I hope it doesn't mean that they're immediately going to launch a brand new show.
Yeah.
Although Picard's ending too, so I guess maybe there's room.
Well, that is a question, and that is something that I think we can speculate on. It might be your mic or your sound settings, because you do sound a little tinny to me, but I can hear you okay. What I was thinking about when we were talking about last week is, do you think any other shows will also be sundown, or if they're starting to look at kind of an end game for some of the shows that are on currently? Other than obviously Picard, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any other show. I mean, maybe Strange New Worlds, if they're going for a limited amount of seasons, just like they always were going for with Picard.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could see that.
I can't see them canceling anything else, or not canceling, but like ending. You know?
Yeah, or reducing the number. Yeah, and Strange New Worlds, I don't know how much it costs. These all cost a lot, so maybe you would think, well, how many how many years do we have? If we've got 10 years, or how many years it is before are out with having to get things to where TOS starts, maybe you think maybe fewer is better. But the response to it was very strong, and I can imagine that they're trying to think of how they can go past 10 years if it comes to that. But of course, money is a question now. What do you think about some of the new shows that are supposedly continually in development and may one day eventually grace our screens? Do you think that shows like Starfleet Academy or Section 31 are in any danger?
Well, one sec. I'm gonna change the microphone that I'm using and
Oh,
see if
okay.
that
Yeah.
helps.
I'll get ready to turn it down so you don't blast us if it fixes it.
How does that sound?
That's better. That's a lot louder.
That's better?
Yeah, that's good. That's
Okay,
that's what you
awesome.
want. That's it.
Okay, perfect. So the Starfleet Academy, I'm glad this sounds better. The Starfleet Academy show is, I feel like that's got, even more than the Section 31 show, I feel like that's coming. And I'm very excited.
Yeah.
But in any danger, I don't know, because I feel like at this point it just seems like they're trying to do as much as they can.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting to me is the convention tea, which I don't know if we want to get into, and I don't know any like gossip or anything. But I feel like that's the interesting part to me about the franchise right now.
Yeah.
The show seems solid.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
you have to wonder, because the second thing that we talked about last week was some comments by Chris Pine, who is I'm sure doing the rounds and being interviewed for something coming up, the D&D movie or something. And he was talking about, this happens every time a Star Trek actor is interviewed, which should tell you something about, I guess, the desire of the audience. But he was saying, like, I just really would love to do this, but I don't know what's going on, and there's nothing that I can do to move it along. And oh, I remember what it was. It was an Esquire article, and so he was talking about Esquire, and he was talking about the fact that, like, they don't make the mid-sized movies anymore, and maybe Star Trek should be that. So he's got that mind virus. And because it's a big Esquire, 10-page thing, they go talk to all the people in his life, and apparently they talk to J.J. Abrams, and he's like, "Oh no, we're doing it. We got a great idea. This is the best idea we've had since 2009. You're gonna love this." So I don't know if that's just Hollywood, the wheel is always spinning, or if they've really got some ideas. But the reason I bring it up is because
Mr. Abrams.
Well, Abrams he's got to sell this stuff, right? But you've got all these TV shows, you've got the movie side, and you've got the amusement side, you've got, the cons and things like that. And they're all kind of under one tent now. Not the same office, but nobody owns, the different aspects of it. And so I wonder if, like Paramount, like a lot of companies, is looking at their ledgers now and going, well, we've been making a lot of streaming shows, and some of them are good and some of them are not doing so good. And so now we're starting to pull things back. And so I can't imagine that wouldn't affect Star Trek, but they just did this big Anson Mount promotional campaign, for the show and for the network itself. And you hear about networks like Peacock, they want to do a big Muhammad Ali series with Regé-Jean Page.
Peacock needs to get a grip. Peacock is worse than Paramount Plus.
Yeah. I don't know where the money's coming from, but supposedly they're in trouble. People are in trouble, but apparently all this spending's still happening. So yeah, I mean, like, knock on wood, it's not going to affect Trek in any way, and we can move forward.
It's so interesting.
Yeah. The real story is you were all deceived, because the real story that I have for you is a good one, and that is that Robert Beltran said that he was offered a role in Star Trek Picard that would pick up on the romance between Chakotay and Seven of Nine, and he turned it down. Now, apparently, in response to a tweet last month on Twitter, somebody asked him, like, well, are you mad that you're not in the new shows? And he's like, well, they asked me to be in the shows, but it was not something that I I didn't like the plot line that they had. I didn't like the aspects of it, and so I decided to say no. But then I had this Prodigy thing, and I ended up I did like that. And it was TrekMovie.com went to Terry Matalas, the showrunner for Picard, and said, "What's this all about?" And he said, "Well, what it was originally we had offered him the role of President Seven of Nine's husband in season 2. So instead of the guy that we got, she was going to wake up and it was going to be Chakotay as her
Okay,
Nazi
that would
paramour."
have been funny. That would have been funny though.
Well, it would it have poisoned the Seven Chakotay shipper well a little bit the first time we
That's
see them in 20
already
years?
poisoned. That's already a red. If someone tells you they're a Seven Chakotay shipper,
For-
that's already a red flag.
I
They're
don't
already
disagree.
poisoned. I'm
I don't
sorry.
disagree, but fandom at large, we're a little divided on that. But so I thought that was really interesting that he was on their radar, already. I mean, obviously these two would have been written and produced about at the same time, but that Picard was saying, no, we know Robert Belton's out there. So yeah, I mean, it's great to see him on Prodigy, but it would have been interesting to see him in that role in Picard as well. Only in the mirror universe. See, that proves that it's not a good relationship. If you live in a Nazi universe,
That's
you
why
can have
it
a
was
Seven
funny.
Chakotay
Exactly.
ship.
Mhm.
Apologies to all Seven Chakotay shippers out there. Let's get
You
in.
know what? I don't apologize.
Okay, apology retracted. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about, the 4th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard, an episode called No Win Scenario. We're here to talk all about it, but first, a warning. We're heading for the spoiler zone, listeners, so be warned. We're glad you've decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for No Win Scenario is, with time running out, Picard, Riker, and crew must confront the sins of their past and heal fresh wounds, while the Titan, dead in the water, drifts helplessly towards certain destruction within a mysterious space anomaly. This episode was written by Terry Matalas and Sean Tretta and directed by Jonathan Frakes, and we've got a start date. We got a start date for this episode, 78183.10. There was also a flashback 5 years earlier to the calendar year 2396, where Picard is in a TGI Fridays, and he is telling stories about his life. Here are some facts about the episode. There's only one, really. Odo appears kind of in this episode. At one point, it looks like Captain Shaw is going on Memory Alpha to check out the page on Changelings, and we see a
I know.
picture.
And also, who put Odo's bucket on Starfleet.com?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Profiles of previous officers.
Yeah. I mean, it's definite. I mean, if it's a reference to Memory Alpha, fine, it's hilarious. But yeah, a picture of Rene Aubergenois as the character Odo. Of course, he appeared in archival clips and as an animated character in the 6th episode of Prodigy's first season, an episode called Kobayashi. But he has not appeared in live action. Well, his last live action appearance, I guess you can say, was the DS9 finale, obviously 24 years ago, What You Leave Behind. So you've got Kobayashi. Last season, Discovery had an episode called Kobayashi Maru. So when you get around to making your Picard episode about a no-win scenario, you're like, I guess we just call it no-win scenario. Like, we don't have any way. It's a no-win scenario trying to not name this no-win scenario.
Yeah.
Fitting for this episode. What you think about this episode, No-Win Scenario?
I really liked it. I thought it was super exciting. Even my roommate, who often I will quote on the show.
Yeah.
She came and sat with me the whole episode, and she was moved. I was like, this one's gonna be a lot of fun, and she loved it, which I think it's I bring her up a lot because I think it's a really good sign for a TV show if someone who doesn't have this emotional attachment to Star Trek and who maybe even hasn't seen most of the show, thinks that it's still fun to watch. I had a really good time. I watched, as I often do when I miss one week, I'll watch both in a row.
Yeah.
So I watched both in a row, and it ended about 12 minutes before the podcast started.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my sweet spot. I love to watch it and then get right on.
Yeah.
But it blurs the lines a bit between episodes, so I might get a little confused, but
yeah. Well,
I loved it. I thought it was super exciting. I thought the ships look amazing. I've never been super into the like fight, the like cut to exterior, and then like watch the spaceships fight
Yeah.
before, and I was having a really good time this episode. I don't know.
It makes sense, I think, that they seem to be going from a more sort of naval tradition of like 50s submarine movies and an audience that literally served on a ship in World War II for flank speed ahead, and right full rudder, to more of a like a video game thing. Like I kind of made fun of the Portal thing in earlier shows, but that's just something people can understand. Like now your audience has grown up playing video games, playing
I mean,
simulators,
literally
and
Portal.
yeah, and just being like, oh no, I get it. So like the ships, they're moving around, but this one has an advantage because it comes up behind and then they shoot and it hits them in the back. And so, I mean, I guess that absolutely makes sense as a thing to do. Since it's fresh in your mind, we can talk about some of the big revelations of last week, going into this week, which is changelings, baby. Changelings are back. What do you think about bringing changelings back?
Um, pro, I guess maybe neutral, tending towards positive. I loved Odo. He's my favorite character. I think it's super compelling. I think me personally, it is a bit less compelling when it's like, oh, they're evil, but it's also like super interesting to think, well, they could be among us. They could be any of us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's interesting.
Um,
Um,
yeah. In this week, they're somewhat easily dealt with. Like it's the old, ask them a question they don't know the answer to, or like get them, trip them up, and then shoot them. I think that maybe you remember better than I do because you just saw it, but there's some kind of explanation about how there's like they lost the war, they went back to the Gamma Quadrant, but then there was a group of them that like weren't happy with that, so these are sort of like rogue changelings.
I was like, sometimes I'm like, they're testing my knowledge.
Yeah,
But yeah. And then essentially, yeah, because
yeah.
then Rafi was like, okay, well, if we acknowledge them, then we're going to like reignite the Dominion War. So,
Which absolutely may be true, and as Cisco's dad showed us, like nobody wants their blood taken at random. Although that would be a parallel that they could do, maybe they don't want to do to our current reality or our lessening reality, according to Hot Ones, of people needing to take precautions. When amongst other people, we don't know who's got it, who's the changeling. Maybe a little too close to home, but that might be a little bit of commentary.
yeah, I was going to say that the whole like, well, we have to be suspicious of anyone and everyone who seems different can get a little, can be problematic. So it's a little scary.
I would argue that's what Star Trek was built to do, but I can also see that maybe that doesn't make a fun escapist kind of show. What do you think?
Suspicious of people who are different.
Yeah, right. We got to build a wall so high, changelings can't get over it. What do you think is up with? We could just cut right to the chase and the end of this episode.
Yeah,
what do you think's up with Jack and the door and the lady saying "Find me"?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and that's that I just finished watching Twin Peaks all the way through for the first time,
Including the third season.
No. So we're watching. So we're gonna watch Fire Walk with Me next, the movie.
Oh, good.
And then the third season is the one that's like the new one, right?
The Return. Yep.
So I haven't seen. Yeah. So I haven't seen the third season. I've seen the first original 2 seasons all the way through.
What you think? Jack's in the lodge? Is that what's going on?
Well, is it not serving?
It does kind of feel like that.
Is it not serving? Like, it just needs one person talking backwards.
If
like,
he had hit
reverse.
his head into the mirror there, yeah, and then he looks and there's a little guy going,
Changeling. And so I couldn't
"Changeling."
think anything besides. I literally wait. This is gonna be funny. I got this for Christmas. It's Agent Cooper.
Yeah. All right. Well,
there's a lot going on.
I want one of those.
But I'll figure out where it came from. The moral of the story is that I have no idea. But clearly this is where my headspace is at. Every Tuesday we watch Twin Peaks. But Well, I was thinking, I was like, it can't be the lady, like, it can't have to do with the lady on the strike, or can it? Must it? But I don't understand what it could be, I guess, because at first I was like, our man, he's having a flashback, he's crazy.
Yeah, there was.
But
Yeah, it's some kind of bloody MacGuffin. The lady Vedic. Are we given to understand that she is a changeling? Like she, and for some reason,
that's what yeah, because her hand,
yeah. I mean, she could just have a changeling hand, just like if you're just a person,
like
then
Peter
you put.
Pettigrew.
Yeah, right. And then she puts it into some kind of quantum entanglement device, and it allows her to communicate with the collective or whoever she's talking to. I don't know.
With oh my god, wait, the joke is loading. Who's the guy in Star Wars, the new Star Wars, who trained Kylo Ren with the face? Andy Serkis.
Oh, Snoke, right?
Snoke.
Yeah, she calls her Snoke. Yeah, right. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so that was just very, well, I'm sure we'll find out more, but that's just so, it's just so weird. I guess the changelings have gotten better at making human faces, because that was the problem before. But they can look like Amanda Palmer.
A little schmooze. Yeah.
Not Amanda Palmer. So I'm thinking of Twin Peaks, Amanda Plummer. So we still don't really know what their involvement is. Do you feel like there's 10 episodes, right? Does this feels like the first sort of break we're getting? Like the first 4 episodes were kind of an adventure, and then we'll probably have an episode that's, I'm guessing, a little more of a pot boiler, a little, relaxed downtime, and then like right back into it.
A bottle episode.
Yeah, because this isn't a complaint. I'm just thinking like not a lot has happened, and also not a lot of has happened. Like not a lot of time has gone by. Because at this point in the second season, we had gone to an alternate timeline, and we had traveled back to LA, and we got arrested by ICE, and
they were doing too much.
A lot of stuff was going on. Yeah, maybe they're trying to slow it down on purpose.
They were doing too much. This episode, the pacing, much better in my expert opinion.
One note that I'd have for the writer's room, when you think we need a flashback scene to set something up for this episode, let's go to it. Stop. Don't go to a bar. Every single one of those scenes, apparently our heroes have just been hanging out in franchise bars for the last 20 years, like since getting off the Enterprise D.
Jameson on the rocks.
Well, you got to get the ad in there, yeah. But like, why is Picard like eating fish and chips at TGI Fridays? Like, if we haven't eliminated franchise bars in the future, this is a dystopia. You got a red wagon over here. You got a rusty tuba over here.
Man does.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, and then and then all the cadets are there for
a glass of wine.
All the cadets are there for Quarter Shot Tuesdays. Yeah, so it's like this meeting of the minds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're like pre-gaming trivia. At
right.
Bar.
Yeah, right. They're good. Yeah, they're all nerds. They're all science nerds. Yeah, they're just there for the trivia.
Yeah. And they're like, you go talk to him. No, you go talk. It's like
right.
when Anson Mount was at Charlotte. It's like, you go talk to him.
Right. And just like Anson Mount, then he wouldn't shut up. Oh, this guy, just shut up already.
Exhausting.
But then it's funny because they do that in a bar, and then it's like, well, what's the scene, what setting that we're going to have for these like two, this father and son to get together? It's a bar. So now they're getting all this mileage out of the bar set, where the holodeck is a bar, and so they're hanging out in the bar.
It's a guy thing.
I guess it's a guy thing. Yeah.
They got a bond over whiskey.
Yeah.
Drink wine. That's for girls.
Yeah, it's got to be fabulous, freely distributed Jameson whiskey, because there's no money in the future. But and so that was an interesting scene. It was also interesting when they're having this talk, and then a bunch of like sad and wounded people are coming in, like, oh my god, we're all gonna die. They're like, can you keep it down? So anyway, I was gonna bang these chicks. Yeah. It's a little strange. But then like Captain Buzzkill came in and shut everybody down. And
my roommate said, I don't like him.
Oh.
I was like, yeah, man.
He's So we were speculating about him, like at the beginning, like is he just like the dickhead that like dies from Chicago and that dies right away, or is he have a sort of an arc where he's going to kind of have a turning point? And it seems like this was something of a turning point for him, but they did put the sort of words in his mouth, the Cisco speech in his mouth. I've met you before. We were at War 359 together. And you got a bunch of people killed. And I have to really give it to the actor who plays Shaw. I thought that he was really great in that scene.
Amazing.
But also, like, great story. I'm trying to talk to my son here. Can you just please? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, we're gonna die in 4 hours. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Things are dire on the ship. Do you think that now that he's still a dick, but he and Picard have seen eye to eye, and he's helped out, except for the fact that they're out of danger, do you now think that this marks him for death? Because he's not going to die unredeemed now. He's friends with us again, but now that's it for him.
That's a good point. I guess I was like, I feel like he's not quite redeemed, you know? Like he's sort of, I don't know, with Seven was like, all right. But he didn't, it's not like he had a moment where he was like, oh, sorry for making you go by Christina Hansen this whole time.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm prejudiced.
Yeah, they missed a shot when the whole exposing the changeling was revolving around her knowing her actual name, Commander Seven. And then they should have had him say, like, nice job, Hansen. And then just go back into the thing and do the thing. I have learned nothing from she literally shot somebody.
He was like based, and then he just went back in the thing. Like he like didn't really. He was like
scene.
That's cool.
Right back up. Yeah. He did mention something interesting when he was in the bar, though, which was that all the wackiness on the Stargazer and the real Borg are still out there. Now we don't know how many painkillers he was on, but we had speculated on our last season of Picard, like, what's the status quo with the Borg now? We've got the ex-Borg Romulan Borgs. We've got Agnes and her Borg collective, and apparently there is still a collective proper in the Delta Quadrant or somewhere, seems to be what they're implying.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the Borg, I never assume that they're gone, just that they're, like, out of touch, right? It's like they're always going to be out there.
Yeah.
You're always going to bonk into a cube. But I also feel like with Picard, it always comes back. Somebody was always at War 359. Someone always has beef. Someone always knows his Borg name. I'm like, can we... What does the man have to do? He's been an old man. He's an old... Look at him.
Didn't a lot of people die at War 359 or Wolf 359? Apparently a lot survived, too, because they're here to complain. He's trying to buy a newspaper. The guy's like, I was at Wolf 359. Okay.
The guy's like, I know you. You're a Locutus of Borg, the only one they ever gave a name to. It's like, let's just take a second. Let's take a deep breath. And leave my man alone, my grandfather.
A lot of animosity against him still. What do you think about the birth that we witnessed at the heart of this nebula? Something is happening. Something that Dr. Crusher says seems like a birth, and then we get a whole flock or school of these little jellyfish things. Do you think they're related to the Farpoint jellyfish or just something else?
Oh,
the space babies.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I thought it was cute. I thought
it's cute until like, oh my God, they're eating the ship.
No. A next episode that would have been the episode is the ship is getting sucked into the thing and they figure out that it's a life form.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been the whole thing.
In the
I also
in the chat we've got Phantom Casual says maybe the Borg have assimilated the changelings. Now this is interesting because that was always a problem, right? Like they well, I can't remember if it was on screen or not, but it's been speculated that they wouldn't be able to assimilate changelings. And so the Borg are the eternal nemesis of Picard. They are mentioned specifically in this episode. maybe we are looking at a meeting of the worst minds here in the plot against him. Cyber changeling.
How do you? I mean, you could. What do you put on a changeling? What kind of implants can you give a changeling?
You just give him
To
like
improve them?
LED lights, just ground
You
effects,
know what? You're so right.
or they could turn into
You're so right
anything,
for that.
but it's got to be a Borg thing. So they're a person, they got a
It's
Borg
never
thing.
not.
Turn into a bird,
It's
it's
like
got a little.
it's like how in
goggles.
Avatar the animals are always two animals put together.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's never like
and
a
they'll have a
normal thing.
tail.
It's always like
Head tail.
cyber computer, cyber platypus.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. Sorry, spoilers, everyone.
Right.
So they ride the waves of this birth out of the nebula and foil Vedic, at least for now. I was glad to see that Geordi's kid wasn't dead because they set up that the changeling destroys or kills the original so they can replace them. So when she came through that door, it was like, oh no, Geordi's kid. But
Yeah,
she's on the bridge. She's fine. She's doing work. Don't worry about her.
Anything but the bob and the bangs.
Yeah. And what you think about the scene at the end? And this is the sort of like payoff, the setup and payoff that they put into the episode, where this whole time we don't really understand why Jack seems to be distant, and Picard wonders, why he never wanted to reach out, and we realize he did. He did try to reach out, but you were too busy telling your stupid stories.
Did he try?
And letting your fish get cold. And Picard didn't recognize him because he was in Marvel disguise. He had a hat on, he had a hoodie. No way to recognize somebody when they do that.
He doesn't know who that man doesn't look like him.
But that man would have been literally the age that Jack Crusher was when they were doing all that crap together. He doesn't look anything like Jack Crusher at all.
Well, he's not because he's not related to Jack Crusher. Yeah.
He's his well. Would he look like his mom?
Yeah. You'd think. A grown person though, there's no way to be like you're not gonna meet just like some rando in a bar and be like, that guy looks like my son,
Well, I suppose if he's
like
literally
if
never
me and
didn't know he existed and never seen a
Beverly.
picture of him, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
If I met a young me, I would be like, that guy looks like me. Wouldn't I?
Sometimes people don't. Sometimes people don't look like their parents though.
That's true. And it's very true in this case. Look, you don't have to go out and cast a guy that looks exactly like young Patrick Stewart, but they did not really bother to do that with this guy.
He also, and I hate to say it, they're really pushing it when they keep saying, what are you, 23, 24?
I know. You'll notice now, because it's been 20 years. 20 years, 20 years, up until this point, and then it's like 23, 4? By the end of the series, it'll be... So when you were 45, I talked to your mother, and she said...
What are you, 23, 24? And they cut to his face, and it's like, that man has seen more.
He went
He's
right...
older, and he looks fantastic.
He went
but
right
he
from
look
the...
24.
He left that TGI Fridays and went right to Malibu and just surfed and tanned for 6 years.
I barely look 24, and I'm 25.
So, it's, thematically, I think it is interesting. They seem to want to, and this has been true of the entire series, but definitely the second season, they seem to want to make Picard the source of a lot of his problems, I think it's arguable.
Daddy issues.
Daddy, mommy issues. It's arguable how much he's really changed at all. And that's just, that's a choice by the writers. But like, if he hasn't changed, then what's the reason? And he's not blaming anybody. But as he goes on these adventures across the galaxy, he's realizing, I never called that guy. Or like, I let that friend slip away. I should have checked up on my, son and erstwhile lover. I should really have talked to somebody about my mom's death. Like, he's starting to realize all these things about his life, which that's true about getting older, I think. Only in space.
Only in space. He also, it's like he's been working his whole life, and then he finally retired. He's like, I'm gonna make the wine, And then how many years into that was the first season of Picard, and he was like, "Oh shit, I
I'll
gotta
do a
get back
Fox
in the
News
game."
interview. I got to get back out there.
Yeah,
I'm going to sell this book.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have some fun. My assistant, who I don't think is pretty at all, I think she's normal. She
Right.
tells me that I need to get out more.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a old friend. He's a single letter named God. He's not feeling well. So, you got to talk to him. And got a lot of things I got to wrap up here. We should probably have a Picard.
If I had the relationship with Q that Picard had with him, I would talk to him like, when you talk to yourself, like in the house, you talk to the cat, you talk to
Just
the dog.
talk. Yeah.
I'd be like,
Oh
Q,
boy.
you could just
Q would sure
make
love this
me
sandwich. I know.
unburn this rice, whatever it is.
Q
that's
loves
with
chicken
the rice.
salad. Yeah. Oh, Q. Oh boy, you love the Rocky films. Yeah.
Q, if you were only here to eat this ice cream with me.
I wish Q was here to have it. I wonder. We should.
Q was here to put some ice cream in my hand right now.
We should have some. We should have a Picard death watch going on, sort of like a thermometer, like a heat level, like how much we think, like he's not going to make it through the end of this show.
Do you think they'll kill him?
Right now, my thermometer is at, I don't know, what is it like? It's Celsius, so it's 1 to 100. It's right at 50. And it has pretty much been, it probably started high. Then we were getting into all this stuff about he's meeting all his friends and his son. I thought maybe it's a little lower. It's kind of creeping up now because they seem to want Jack Crusher to take over, Picard's legacy. Although that's kind of spinning its wheels now too. They're really just sort of reconnecting. So I don't know. What do you think?
If they killed him, I think it would be a bummer, and not. I just end it there. I think it would be a bummer.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would be a satisfying end to the series. Like, I feel like if this series is like a little smooch goodbye on the forehead of Next Generation, I don't think that there's any way in which Picard dying could make a satisfying end. Because it's not like he needs redemption, unless they zero in on the whole Locutus thing, and he decides like, I need to pay the ultimate price, and he sacrifices himself to save 10,000 people or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, 4 episodes in is a little late to do that, but that could be what they're doing. Yeah.
So I guess if I were them, I wouldn't, because I think what we need is for him to be like an old man, and he's in his future wheelchair, and he's at the vineyards.
Sure.
And someone's going to take care of him until he dies.
Yeah.
He's in hospice care. He's going to die peacefully 6 months to 2 years from the end of the series,
Sure. See if we can fit that in the schedule. Yeah. They... something that, once, I mean, at this point, like the legend of the character, both in real life and in the world of the show is huge. And I think it's deserved, but like in the original series, by which I mean the Next Generation, which is confusing. They're skilled people, but they're Starfleet officers. They're here to do a job. They deal with weird things. They take care of it. Sometimes they don't, win the day, but they always, sail to another adventure. And as the movies have gone on and he's stopped the Borg a couple times and all this, now he's become like, the defender of the universe. So I wonder if they will have to satisfy the idea of losing this guy who's always going to be there when the huge threats come, if that will be sort of handed off to somebody else. You know what I mean? Because when you were somebody like Jean-Luc Picard and everything you say is right, and you've always got the best idea and you're the wisest and you're always figuring things out, even you would be like, I can't leave. It's like Doctor Who. It's like when David Tennant's like, I don't want to go. It's partially because like, I'm fixing all the time things and like I'm the guy that's always there and I got to help everybody out. And so I wonder if they will give him an opportunity like Tony Stark, I'm all over the map, where they say, you can rest, Tony. It's okay. We got a lot of Avengers now. If they'll have to have a moment like that.
We got so many. There's too many of them.
We have a lot of shows. Have you seen those commercials with Anson Mount? We're in good hands. Yeah. So hopefully we will be in good hands, and hopefully Picard will meet a good end.
We're always in good hands.
Yes, we are. I think that's it for our show this week. Thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notifications when we are live and broadcasting. While you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. And if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return on March 16th for the 5th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. It's an episode called Imposter, and we'll be here next Thursday to cover it, going live at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then, and follow us on Twitter or Facebook to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Picard, and remind people where they can find you online.
My home podcast, I like to call it, I think, is called Generations Geek. We do episodes on everything, not just Star Trek, literally everything. And I've been doing it since I was like 14 years old.
Yeah.
So there's some ammo in there.
Would you
go ahead and find it?
Would you recognize yourself if you met yourself?
I don't, and I know I don't, because one time I heard my dad listening to a podcast in the kitchen, and I was like, why is there a 13-year-old boy on this podcast that my dad's listening to? I walked in, it was this show, it was me.
There you go. So definitely check that out for the lulls. I'm at @KA1IBAN on Twitter, and you can subscribe to us right here on Twitch. Hit the bell and the heart icon. And get locked into us right here in our streaming capital. That's it for us. We will see you soon. And until then, we are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.